Hi, I'm Luis Santeiro, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, so roll it.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Have been here with us. Thank you for joining. Of course, I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh. Today, of course, our co-hosts, Chris Bixby and Matt Bingo. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good. Hi, everybody. How are you, Jake?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you for asking. Chris, what do we have for today?
Yes, happy you're here with us, folks. Today's guest is a writer. She was a writer on Sesame Street for many, many years. She also wrote for other children's series, including Between the Lions, Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss. She co-created the Upside Down Show and the Furchester Hotel. Whole bunch of things that we'll be talking about later on. And here she is, Belinda Ward. Belinda, happy to have you here.
Hi, nice to be here.
Happy to have you.
My pleasure.
Yes, happy to have you indeed. So to kick this off, in your own words, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm a writer. I most of my career I spent writing for Sesame Street, which was really a dream job, and I continue to write for children. I was a head writer recently for Pinkalicious and Peterrific, and I am currently writing for Donkey Hodie. I left Sesame Street it was probably about 2 years ago. And what else would you like to know?
So to kind of just to start with that, actually, the perfect segue. What was your childhood like, and how did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut in Stamford, and I I had kind of a like nothing special kind of childhood. I mean, I read a lot, I played outside a lot. I just kind of normal stuff, nothing really that interesting. But probably around fourth grade is about the first time I remember writing stories. And um, and I continued to be interested in creative writing, fiction writing, and through college I took, really fiction writing classes. I got an MA, I graduated from Cornell, but I in with a BA in English, but I got an MA in uh, English, but it was really in creative writing. It was really before they had an MFA, and the idea was that I was going to be a real serious fiction writer. So I I went into I was did production in advertising because I didn't want to write for advertising. I wanted to save myself for my fiction. Um, but eventually I auditioned for Sesame Street, and it was just something that I had a feeling for. And I, the audition process probably went on for about 2 years. Um, they were very, very strict back in the day. They really wanted people to be comedy writers, more so than children's writers. And I didn't have any experience in any of that, but I think the first time I watched the show with the sense that I was going to write for it, I just had a feeling that I could do it. And I just want to emphasize, because there are so many shows that I adore and I look at, I mean, adult shows, and I think, oh, I could never write for that. But Sesame Street, I just connected with. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my route.
Nice, nice.
Nice. So I'm kind of curious. Do you remember the very first thing that you wrote for Sesame Street?
Yeah, I wrote four audition pieces. Um, and two of them, this was like a miracle considering what came afterwards, but I wrote four what you probably know call inserts, like not the
Right.
stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
I wrote it was the one I remember, I can't remember what the second one was, but the one I remembered was a Bert and Ernie one where Ernie's wakes up Bert in the middle of the night and he's trying to write a poem and he's trying to find I think it's about a flower or something. He's
Right.
trying to find
Yeah.
a word that rhymes with dirt, Bert. What is a word that rhymes? It goes on like that.
It's funny.
Um, and that got on the show, but then they gave me a full show to write, with this at that time everything was cut up, but so you would take a street story and it was cut up into maybe 7 bits. And you kept coming back to the street and with the characters that really lived on the street, like Big Bird and Oscar. And I just bombed on my first show. I just did it. It was just like terrible. Like I thought, oh, I've got this. And then it took me really 2 years to really learn the characters. And they were, the producers and Norman, the head writer at the time, they were so careful about guarding those characters and making sure that, it was always like Big Bird wouldn't say that and this one wouldn't do that. And they had to be so authentic. And I really think that that's a big reason why the show became a success, because all the comedy came from character. It wasn't just like, hit a joke, hit a joke. It had to come from something that the character was doing or wanted.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm kind of curious, even though it's probably like a difficult a question for you in any sense, but are there any episodes or inserts that you wrote that kind of stick out as some of your favorites?
Should have prepared for this. I did do once. I loved writing for Oscar, and I once I this was a long time ago, but I remember doing the show where Oscar and Grangetta are going to get married, and then
Oh
they
yeah, that's a
Right,
Oh,
classic.
yes.
yes.
and they decide at the last minute they'd be too happy, so they don't. That was one of I had a great time writing that. Ah, I I don't. I wrote a lot of parodies, which I love
Oh yeah, the
doing.
parodies are always great.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So I did a lot of those. And what else? I did a show where this was when my kids were little, and I did a show where Big Bird um keeps climbing into Gordon and Susan's bed at night. So he's pushing them out onto the floor.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the time when one of my kids was like coming into the room at night, so I did that. I also wrote some songs. Uh, I wrote a lot of songs, but one of the songs was "Oh Look What Our Baby Can Do." Steve
Oh
Lawrence was.
yeah,
Oh, yes.
it's a
That
good
was that
one.
baby, like Natasha with her really idiot kind of parents, really
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
inane parents, and I loved writing for them. Let me see. Um, ah, I don't know,
I,
maybe
I
something.
I love the one where where Elmo's trying wants to drive the Zoemobile, and then Zoe wants to keep wants to keep driving, and then Elmo just being like
Gets
With
fed up with
count.
her.
yeah.
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 Yes.
I love that one. I mean,
Uh,
such a classic too. And the one where
Right when
where Prairie Dawn like trying to do Monsterina.
she's trying to get in
oh,
touch with her inner monster.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Vitaly, Emma, and Rosita.
Ellen Rosita.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember more than I do, that's for sure. I remember one that I liked was when I always liked using fairy tale characters, and a couple
Hmm.
of them one of them that I loved was when Jack Be Nimble fell off his pogo stick and he couldn't get
Oh,
get back on his pogo
Right.
stick.
yes.
I like that. There was
Yeah.
one Humpty Dumpty kept falling off. I can't remember. No, I shouldn't even bring this up because I can't remember the setup, but Humpty Dumpty kept falling off the wall, you know.
That's
Okay.
funny. And well, speaking of pogo sticks, there was actually an episode I remember that was focused on Telly and
Hmm.
Zoe,
Yeah, I was
Where
like, yeah.
yeah, where Zoe wanted to have a turn on Telly's pogo stick.
Yes.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Chris.
Yeah,
Yes,
there are a
that's
lot of
right.
good
Love that
ones.
one too.
Oh God, I can't remember what happened.
You've been running a lot of episodes that you just don't remember some of them
Yeah,
anymore.
Yeah,
it's a long time, it's over 30 years that I wrote for them. And
right.
yeah, I mean, I've even had the experience of starting when I was on the show, like starting to write a song or starting to write something and realizing that I had already written it. Like it's just because
Yeah.
had done so many. Yeah.
From what I remember, the episode that I mentioned, it was like Zoe wants to turn on Telly's pogo stick, and then Telly lets her have a turn, but then Zoe won't give it back, and you
Oh
know
yeah.
Telly, who's kind of already this nervous, kind of frantic
Yeah,
monster,
that's
ends
so
up
correct.
getting kind of
Telly
fed
can
up.
just be like, where I get back to my
Yes.
pogo stick.
My
Yeah,
pogo stick.
Marty.
yeah.
Well,
Telly was
he's amazing.
the best character to write for. Telly was so much fun to write for. They after a
Love
while,
Telly.
Oh,
in the
yes.
later years, they didn't want us writing for him anymore. But man, I loved writing for him, and he's such a good actor, Marty.
Uh, he's the
They're all
best.
great. Yeah, they're all great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they really are.
Absolutely.
So now you got to write for a number of the recurring segments on the show, including Monsterpiece Theater. What was
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I think my first one for that
Writing
was
for that, like,
Taming of the Shoe. I think I
Oh
did. I think
yeah.
it's the very
Hmm.
first one. Again, that's so much fun because of the parodies, that just getting to do parodies it was my favorite thing to do. That and I think writing songs, so much fun. Um, yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. Monsterpiece Theater is a lot of fun. You also got to write from the Elmo segments, Elmo's World and Elmo the Musical. You got to write a few episodes of those. What were those like, getting to write for Elmo in those ways?
Well, Emma, that was Judy Freudberg was the head writer on those, and that was really where the show changed a bit because it got a bit younger, it started
yeah,
to appeal to really younger kids, and that was also a lot of fun to write for, just all the silly animations that went into that.
yeah, like Joey Album. Most of his animations for the TV part,
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
he's done some amazing job for those.
yeah, they were great. And Mr. Noodle,
Oh
love,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
yeah,
Um, Michael Jeter, Bill
Hmm.
Irwin,
yeah, yeah,
great, great
they're
guys.
yeah, really brilliant. So we always in the old days there were always lots of writers meetings, and it was just so much fun because everybody had a very similar sensibility, so we were just laughing the whole time. It was really as fun as you would hope it would be. It really was great. Um,
Nice.
Very nice. So, in addition to the live action segments, you also wrote for one of the animated segments, Abby's Flying Fairy School. Now, I'm curious, what was it like writing for animation compared to live action?
it's it's a little different, because obviously when you're restricted with puppets and the way that they can move, so you have to suddenly you have more freedom in terms of where they can go, and she can fly around and what they can do. And so it's a question of visualizing it or letting yourself do things that you really can't do when you have a puppet. You have to really they're those puppeteers can do just about anything, but you are definitely limited, in certain ways. The interesting thing about animation, when the first really when I was head writing Pinkalicious, I suddenly realized though that animation has its a lot of limits too, that there are things that are really hard to do in animation. So with every kind of thing, you learn about the constraints. But for me, I I tended like, especially when I write for Muppets or puppets, the characters are so real to me that I always forget that they have these physical constraints, because it's
Mm.
just they're like, I don't think of them as puppets, and I don't, I just write the character. So I would write what I wanted to do, and then it's the same with animation where you just write what you want to do, and then you wait for the producers to tell you that no, no, that's not possible. But the starting point is I kind of put that all aside because I just really wanted to write what the story was.
Mm. Right. Right. So, aside from episodes and segments, you also co-wrote the special The Cookie Thief with one of our dear friends and past guests, Joey Mazzarino. What went into writing that special? That was a really good special.
That was
I
that
love
was
Joey.
Yeah.
Joey's the best. Yeah, Joey is so funny, and we had a great time. We had a great time writing that, and um, just I mean, seeing that come around was really really fun. I I'm trying to think. I know towards I remember there was something where I I turned in like my last draft and I went on vacation in Europe and then we got the call that something had to be totally changed, and poor Joey had to like he didn't want to bother me on his vacation, so he was fixing everything. But I have one of those, I don't know if you remember the artwork from that, but it was like cookie versions of famous pictures.
Oh
And
yeah.
I have one of them in
Oh,
my
it's funny.
office. It's
Right.
like it's just so. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like you think of these things, and then the set designers and people just come up with brilliant, this brilliant stuff that's like way better than you could ever have imagined.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, Sesame Street's also kind of known for dealing with a lot of serious topics, but it kind of goes into writing those type of episodes like that.
Um, there's a lot of research that goes into the serious topics. Like, we did a series of hurricane shows, and
Oh yeah.
um, I did the one where Big Bird's nest was completely destroyed. But the research department, um, they really give us, there were a lot of meetings. Anytime we do anything, anything that's serious or anything where you have to really get it right, the research department does a lot of research about what's appropriate for the age group and what they can handle. And then it's a question of, you write the story, but you have to really use some of the language that they're telling you to use so that you or handle something in a certain way that would be age appropriate. And we had lots of meetings around. Anytime we did a show like that, there would be the writers would meet and talk about what, how to approach it and what we wanted to do. So it's like it's more important. Like it takes a lot more. I mean, every show they think about everything, but this was really, we would do a series of shows often on a serious topic. Um, and so it's just a little bit of a different approach. It's the we did the fun one that we did on serious thing is when we sent Slimy to the moon. Um,
Oh yeah. That's a
Yes.
classic.
That was so much fun.
Yeah.
I think that was Luis Santaro's idea, and then Lou Berger was the head
Uh,
writer at the time.
Please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Luis and
Yeah.
Lou, they're
Great
yeah.
wonderful.
guys.
And we did all like a series of these shows, and it was so funny. It was really funny to do those.
Nice.
That's great. Since you kind of like already like touch base with you got to writing songs. Some of them I love that you got to well, that they probably don't remember because it's been a long time. They wrote this probably on breakfast as the best meal of the day.
I don't think I wrote that. Did I write that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, you did. It
Oh,
was a Bert and Ernie song. It was a song that took place in their like apartment, I would want to
yeah,
say.
Oh my God.
yeah,
Who,
it was. And then
what year was that?
and
Who was
then
the composer?
That was
Uh,
like in the mid 2000s. It says you co-wrote that. Well, you wrote the lyrics and Mike Renzi wrote the music.
Oh,
yeah, it
wow.
was like 2005, I think it was. Oh five,
That
oh
long ago.
six.
huh?
No, no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. A nostalgia show and I can't remember anything.
Oh no, it's
It's
okay.
okay. Let's see. Well, I remember this was much later, but there was one with it was in an episode, I think it was focused on Telly and Baby Bear. It's a song called "A Best Friend's Kind of Day."
hmm
Oh, I forgot
Yeah,
about that one.
Yeah. There's a baby coming.
Yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. That's a
That
good
was,
one.
yeah, when we did the series of shows with Gina adopting the
Yeah.
baby. Yeah,
oh
Allison
yeah,
Barber.
those
She's
Mhm.
great.
those
yeah.
were
I
those are
did a
very
lot of
bittersweet episodes.
there. There was a parody for Les Miserables,
Oh
Les
yeah.
Oh
and
yeah.
I did a lot
Right.
of parody songs within that. That was, I think, one of my favorite things that I got to do. Um, it was just, I think at the time, even my son was in a production of Les Mis at his high school. And so by that point, I'd heard the song so many times. So I just wrote and wrote and wrote parodies of all of those. It was really fun.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
great.
there was one episode I just thought of and a song that goes with it as well. It was the episode, I think it was from 97, 1997, I think it was. It was the episode where Baby Bear stopped sucking his thumb, and
Uh,
there's a song that you wrote called I'm Growing Up in that episode.
Yeah.
uh, uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That,
Baby Bear's another fun character that they
Oh
don't
yeah.
really use much these
Very
days, but
fun.
he's
Yeah,
such a fun character.
Oh
really
yeah.
fun.
like,
I mean,
he
every character is fun to write for.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to write,
A lot
yeah,
of them.
so fun to write for. Just like he was, I think Lou Berger really gave him
That's
his.
right. Yeah, I
Yes.
remember when we talked to Lou, yeah,
yeah,
he said that he kind of came up with the concept of a Baby Bear.
Yeah,
yeah. And David Wellman, oh my gosh, such an amazing job. I mean, Cookie Monster, and oh my
yeah.
gosh,
I mean,
what an
they're all
amazing
so,
performer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Frank and then David. Yeah, so they're so great. Um, yeah, I Baby Bear and Telly, like the characters that I think the writers really gravitated to for many years. They're kind of they're kind of
Right.
gone, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
although
And
I
since we,
heard they've brought Telly back in the past couple of seasons.
They
yes,
have, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Marty's talked about it that like in some of the recent seasons they've been filming, they've been writing more and more for Telly, which is good
yeah, which
because
is great.
We've
like
seen
we've
it a
been
couple
talking
times.
about, Telly's such a wonderful character.
And I
We've
think
seen it
there are
a couple
kids
times.
out there, still have that kind of a mutual feeling what Telly is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
so it's great for Telly to still have that involvement, much involvement that
Absolutely.
fans like to have.
it's like all of his anxieties, which are it's like for children, but also for writers have similar. Writers are very anxious people, so it's sort of like I think that's
Right.
why we can all relate to that audience because there's so much in common. Um, but yeah, those are great characters.
Oh yeah, and since we kind of like mentioned a bit of the where Prairie Dawn like trying to be like monsters like I'm mostly done tell like we mentioned a little bit where the two songs that they got to do which I love those two Monster and Me and Monsterina.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Both great
So many
songs.
fun songs.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, those are fun to write.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, again, it's like the parodies. Like I did a telly with the Triangle Lovers Club.
Mm.
Yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
I
Remember
mean,
that.
that was sort of Lou's creation, but I did some of the shows with that and got to do like Where Have All the Triangles Gone, like a parody of the Dylan, the Where Have All the Flowers Gone kind of thing. Um, oh, that's not Dylan, but whatever. It was a parody of that song. And just really fun.
Nice.
Absolutely. So now, for it's kind of like a kind of deep cut question in a way, in a sense, but you actually are also served as creative consultant for the Rosie O'Donnell show on Sesame Street.
For the
If you
which
remember.
the Rosie O'Donnell one?
Yeah,
Yes.
when Rosie
Yes.
O'Donnell took her whole set to
The
Sesame
Sesame
Street.
Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of curious, of course, if you remember, well, how did kind of came to be, and what was your like fondest memories
Well, we had to
from
go
it?
over and meet with her in her office. And it was a little intimidating.
Mm,
And I I yeah, it was an odd kind of a collaboration, I would say. I don't know, in terms of being a writer in that situation where, we were so used to being so like valued, in the early days. It was, the writers were really, really valued. And so that was kind of a funny, I mean, it was fun. And she came to the street and it was all fun, but it wasn't the usual kind of relaxed atmosphere that everybody was used to. It was such a great set to be on Sesame Street because everybody was always really kind and caring, just again, like what you would hope it would be. And I think with Rosie O'Donnell, there was it's more of like a Hollywood kind of vibe.
mhm.
Um, and
Right.
and she runs the show. So it was a little bit of a different feeling to it, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, as a writer for Sesame, you script a number of celebrity appearances. Did you have any favorites to work with?
Um, I love John Goodman. He did a Triangle Lover. It turned out he was a member of the Triangle Lovers Club,
Yes, that's right.
and that was great. Yeah. Who else? Diane Sawyer. Um,
Yeah.
that was a funny thing because I had written a comedy bit for her, and Joan Cooney was very good friends with Diane Sawyer. And that was, I think,
Oh
probably when
wow.
she was coming on the show. And Joan Cooney did not want her to do a comedy bit. And so I think I had her like interviewing Dorothy Elmo's fish. And they did not want that. So I had to write, they wanted her to sing a song. And so I had to write kind of like overnight, I had to write like it was a really kind of a schmaltzy song for her to sing. So that was a little disappointing for me because I really, I really wanted her to interview Dorothy, but
Yeah, on the topics of songs, you also wrote the song where Adam Sandler guest starred and sang a
oh,
song about Elmo.
Mm-hmm.
was
Right.
amazing. He was so brilliant. He's so talented. Like he just like picked it up instantly. He just got it, and he was so nice, but so talented. That's the thing with so many of these celebrities is when they get there, you realize um just the immense talent that they have, like what it takes to come in on a song you're just seeing for the first time. They've got all these puppets going by you, and then, he was unfazed. He was having a great time, and he just like did it, like without even thinking about it. It was amazing. The other person that was amazing like that was Macklemore. Um,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
because I did a parody of one of his songs, and so you think about how many times you have to sing. He's probably sung that song. I wanna what's it, the thrift shop song,
Hmm.
um, and I changed it to Oscar, like I want to buy some trash or whatever. And he instantly got it with the new lyrics without even like blinking. He just had it. And I think that that's got to be tremendously difficult to do, something that you're so used to, and just do it without any, and they really did it sort of like a music video. And so he was also, moving and in a different set and with these grouches around him and backing him up. And he didn't even bat an eyelash. He just like, just got it like that. It was amazing to me.
Yeah, and there's also the bit with Elmo and the New York Jets that you
Oh,
got to write. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
that's right. And I'm somebody, I don't know a thing about football. My father used to try to explain it to me. My husband's tried to explain it to me. My son tried to explain it to me. I don't know anything about it. And Carolyn Parenti was the executive producer, and she was a huge, huge Jets fan. And she asked me to write this bit, and I did. And my kids came in, they were young then, and they were in the show. Um, and it was it was wild. But it worked out. And you probably know the name of, the famous coach guy that was there. Do you guys know
I don't
who
think so.
Anyway, my husband will
I
know.
can't remember off the top of my head at the
I can't
moment.
remember his name, but anyway, he was a real natural. I mean, he was a
Hmm.
really good actor. Um, what's his name? Joe something.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'll email you if I ever remember it.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Uh,
yeah, that was, I can't even believe that I had to write something for football players. Uh,
uh,
Moving on from Sesame Street, you created the spin-off, the Furchester Hotel. How did that show kind of come about?
well, that came about when originally when we moved around the street, when we went around the corner on Sesame Street, um, there was a hotel on that street called the Furry Arms.
oh yeah.
So
Yes.
that was sort of the genesis of that. And Arlene Sherman had asked, I think it was me, Tony Geist, Judy Freudberg. I'm not sure if Joey was in on that, but a group of us at some point, she wanted us to develop a family program based on the Furry Arms Hotel. And we worked on that, and we did a whole, pitch for it, and she was never able to sell it. And it kind of went in a drawer until it was Dion Nosek who kind of pulled it out of the drawer, and they decided to bring it back down to a preschool show, and they wanted to sell it to the UK, to the CBeebies, which is the children's kind of version of BBC. It's the children's channel there.
Hmm.
And so I was sort of the only one left, and I then had to just reconfigure the whole thing and as a children's show, and they wanted to have Elmo in it, and Cookie Monster, so I had to bring them into it, and I wrote this whole pitch for them, and they ended up going with it and doing it. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was kind of saddled with this problem solving curriculum, which was a little bit, I don't know, a little heavy for it. But we went over to the UK a couple of times, and I had some British writers and some American writers, and it was really,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah,
really.
we chatted with some that one of the directors who worked on that, which also worked for a director for Sesame, Jack Jameson.
Oh, he was a great director. Yeah,
Lo
then he ended up.
loved Jack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's great.
yes, and the set was unbelievable. They did like a really a life-sized in like hotel, and they had to change the name. I guess we wanted to use the furry arms, but because it's the arms is really refers to pubs in the UK, they didn't want to have a children's show that, you know, sounded like it's a pub.
Hmm.
So they had to come up with another name. So I came up with the Furchester Hotel. And but the set was like it was like this amazing, you know, you could shoot 360 in it, and it was just this amazing set. And we had some British puppeteers, Louise Gold, I'm sure
Oh, I love Louise. Yeah.
Luis.
Louise.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we just it was really, really fun. And then they unfortunately they did 2 seasons of it, but it was a very expensive production, evidently, so they decided not to go for a third one, which was too bad, but we really had a great time with that.
Yeah. Oh
Nice.
yeah, I'm Warwick Brownlow Pike.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he also came from that
Yes.
show and is now working on Sesame Street.
That's
Doing
right.
Gonger. Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
who
Yes.
he's the
came out
best.
of the Furchester, who
Hmm.
actually Gonger was sort of a really a David Rudman um creation, because I had in the show I had this group of, I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but I had these a group of monsters who spoke just monsterese, and somebody would ring a gong and it would be tea time, and they would just come like rampaging through the lobby to go get their tea, you know, chanting, you know, tea time, and singing this little chant. And so there was this one little pink monster that David Rudman was working when he was there, and he really became the star. I think he was the one that hit the gong, and then he would, you know, like shake because he was so little. It was like this big gong, and David like went to town with him. And then when David left, I think Warwick took over that puppet, and it was wild, really fun.
Nice.
That's great. So, of course, with going from more to a children's series, you got to starring with the Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss. What was that like? Love that
That
show.
that's yeah, that was a challenge because the scripts had to be completely in rhyme. And also because, you know, Dr. Seuss is this genius. So then you sit down to write this, and you know you can't be Dr. Seuss, but you still have to make it sound like Dr. Seuss, but it's
But
never
like in
gonna,
your own way,
Yeah.
technically.
yeah. But it's sort of daunting because, you know, here's this like the genius of Dr. Seuss. You're never gonna get to that, but we certainly, you know, made an effort. And yeah, I think I wrote the premiere episode was the Gink that I
Mm.
wrote. Um, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was a very challenging production though, because they were doing all of this green screen that they had never done before. And so it was sort of the actual the actual days of production were tense and long because there were a lot of technical kind of glitches that they had to work out. So, but the writing, you know, the writing part was fun to do. And Lou was the one who pitched that whole idea, who got that show really approved by Dr. Seuss's widow.
Nice.
He and
Nice.
Michael, he and Michael Frith
Oh
did
yeah,
that.
Michael Frith. Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of Michael Frith, you also wrote for the PBS series Between the Lions. What was
Yeah.
it like working on that?
That was so interesting. I remember they took us all to this inn up in Massachusetts, to sort of brainstorm about what the show would be. And Lou and I went to that, and it was really interesting. And getting to work with Norman again was so much fun, and Chris Surf. So that, you know, again, it was a whole different thing. And I think I only wrote probably a couple, 2 or 3 episodes, I think, of that. And then I
Hmm.
was, you know, busy on Sesame. I was still, you know, on Sesame Street, but it it was really, you know, it was a whole thing with with reading. I think at the time, one of my one contribution was that at the time, my daughter was learning to read. I think she was about 5 or 6, and I would hear her in a room, and she would be like sounding the things out. And so they kind of gave that characteristic. I mean, it was really funny when you'd hear her going like, bah, 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 and they gave that kind of characteristic, I think, to what's the little lions, the female lion.
Oh, Leona.
Leona and
Leona and
Lionel.
Lionel, yeah.
Right. So
Gosh, such
I
a good
think
show.
that was my contribution to that. But yeah, it was really fun, and I liked all the interstitial stuff they had on that show, cliffhanger
Oh
and
my gosh.
Oh my gosh, yes, Chris
Yeah.
Phillips.
You
Chris
guys
Phillips was the voice.
did you grow up on the show? I mean, did you?
Oh yeah, I love Between the
yes.
Lions. Yeah.
Yes.
Watch that show so much.
One
growing up. Such a wonderful show.
And in fact, talking about
One of my favorite
episodes,
PBS shows. Like
one that I
honestly.
remember from that show that I think you might have written was the episode. It was in the first season where there was like a bunch of popcorn.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
popcorn popper.
Popcorn
Yes.
popper, yeah.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a time that like Sesame kind of like a part of like episode 2. A tweet.
Yeah, Sesame Street was on the show as well.
Yeah, and then
Oh.
someone do a dance to Smarty Pants.
Mhm.
Oh,
Bird and Elmo did one.
Yeah.
Big Bird and
And
Ernie and Bert was
Yeah.
there one episode. I
Oh.
think just that. I think.
Yeah.
Now-
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And on the subject of segments in the show, I don't know if you remember this one, but whenever we talk to people who have worked on Between the Lions, one segment that we always kind of talk about is the What's Cooking with Cleo and Theo segments,
Oh yes.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
and how
Yeah.
everyone was kind of surprised that PBS let them get away with the segment
With so much.
because of how
Yeah.
off the rails Cleo and Theo would get.
Oh,
Yes.
Jen and Peter. That's such a
Yeah.
great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great
Yeah.
people too.
Yeah.
I mean Kathy and then Anthony Asbury, and then later on it was Pam and Noel doing a
Yeah.
Leona and Lionel.
Wonderful show.
Such oh yes. Except with Sesame, I think Between the Lines is probably one of our favorite shows going on, because the way the show like taught like kids about, of course, they're wild about reading, but of course different things to learn, like from having more like initials, like like we said with cliffhanger, and then what's cooking, mentioned that too, and the Green's word, then a lot of stuff, lots of good things that was like, it was so different, but it makes the show still kind of simple in a way that makes the kids learn a lot about when they started to learn about reading. So I think that was just great. I mean, Chris and Norman and the rest, the creative team, for creating that show. Oh my gosh.
And the show worked too, it was very successful.
Such wonderful people too.
Well,
And
it's not just that. It was not just that. It's just that the show was so successful in doing so. Like Between the Lions really showed, like, how do I describe this? Improvements in reading in schools. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it really did.
Yeah, because I remember Chris Surf talked about how there was a time where they would supply, like, Between the Lions, like DVDs and videos for schools for teachers to use for their students, which I thought was so special.
That is
Yeah.
really cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Sesame Street, we even found out that some of our scripts were being used in Japan to help people, Japanese adults, learn how to read. Which,
Oh, wow.
Wow,
some-
that's cool.
not to
Wow.
read, to speak English.
To speak
You know,
English.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
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 That's really cool.
I just
Nice.
sort of stumbled on it.
Yeah.
That it was, yeah. I mean, I think the whole idea, and I think this is how children's television is starting to change a little bit, but the whole idea back then was like, first you make it funny and entertaining so the kid will watch it, but along the way they're learning something.
Yeah.
Now the learning is like a little bit more of hitting you over the head. that seems to have taken precedence, it's just a difference in the whole, not just Sesame Street, but everywhere seems to.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. I've heard, I know Chris and Norman kind of talk about that. If when they're trying to creating the show, it took a little bit, like a couple of years to trying to get the show what it came to be. And
Yeah,
I think after all that process, I think that was worth it for finally get the show what it is, because I feel like if they didn't have that much process, the show will be probably so much different. But because you have to create something like that, it takes so much a while to create something for this or this particularly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It does, but I think like when Chris and Norman are, have collaborated or for such a long time, so you get they click because of the sense of humor that they share.
Oh, yes.
It's like all of us, like we just, like I was saying, you get in a room and you just laugh and everybody sort of, one spins off the other. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely. So another show you co-created was the Noggin series, The Upside Down Show, starring the Umbilical Brothers.
Yeah, that
What
was
what was working with them like?
They are insanely funny. I mean, just as they appear, that I don't know if you know that they really play for all over the world for adults. They have very adult humor. And Kurt Mueller was a creative director at Sesame Workshop at the time, and he had seen them they were in an off-Broadway show. And he had seen them in that, and it was his idea to try and put them into a show for kids, for preschoolers, and it was such a creative idea. And so he and Anna Housley, who was a research person, and I sat in a room and tried to develop this show. And one of the key features that they had in their adult act was this remote control that operated them. So I got the idea of having an imaginary remote control, because the whole show was supposed to be about imagination, so that the kid at home, they would
have pretend remote control. Yeah.
Yeah, and that they would say, like, whatever you do, don't press the upside down button, and
Such a
do that,
funny
and then
show.
they would go upside down.
Gosh.
They brought they are just so as funny as they are in their act. They are just
Oh my
fun.
gosh.
It's so,
I
yeah,
love that.
we were watching like the first episode before we came on here, the episode where they keep trying to find the movie theater. I think it was one that Joey wrote. And oh
Yes.
my gosh, that is just so funny.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
The energy and the humor, like you said, that they bring to that show,
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's
their acts in general, it's just phenomenal.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's really like interesting. Like the show only lasted just only like for a little
One
tiny
season.
bit. Yeah, it was only for like 13 episodes.
Well, the reason was it was a co-production between Nickelodeon and Sesame Workshop, and they had been I'm not sure what I don't remember the exact thing, but they had been given a pot of money that they had to create something together, and this is what they did. But after the first, we were already meeting on the second season, and then Nickelodeon Noggin pulled out of it. So we were all set. In fact, I was going through old files. I just came across all my notes from the second season and what we were going to do and what we wanted to change, but it didn't happen. That was probably the most disappointing thing in my whole professional career, because it was just such a hoot to write. But I went on. We wrote a movie together of the Upside Down show, but we just couldn't quite.
Yeah,
We couldn't.
right.
We couldn't get it completely financed, so that just went by the wayside. But another disappointment. But that was so much fun to write with them, and also to go to Australia and work with them on the set was
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
That's right.
a
Yeah.
lot of things that they wanted to do, like that. that the folks from Nickelodeon just didn't like they would mime brushing their teeth and expectorating, and it was mime. They weren't even really doing it, but they didn't want that, or they didn't want them climbing on the couch because kids don't climb on the couches. But they're
Right.
like, you can just, if you say, they'll just want to do the opposite of what of whatever they're told. So it was always a little, it was challenging, but they're just, they don't have boundaries like that, and they're just so funny.
Yeah, wonderful show.
Nice.
Yes.
So now, what was it like getting to write for Peg Plus Cat?
Oh yeah, that I didn't do so well on that show. Just wrote one episode of that, and I really don't think I had a good feeling for that show. Um,
Hmm.
Maybe it's because I don't like math. So
I mean,
that,
probably.
Can
I mean, Peg
understand that.
Plus. I mean, yeah, because
I wasn't a big fan of math either when I was
yeah,
in school, so I can relate.
yeah,
I think it's a wonderful show. I love the show.
Hmm.
Billy
Billy
Aaron
Arison.
is
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
I love
Right?
Billy.
Yeah.
He's great.
I loved the show, but I wrote an episode, and I don't think I really got the hang of it.
Hmm. Gotcha.
I mean that makes sense because the comparison of two Peg Plus Cat and then between the Lions and the Sesame, it's just all different. You
They're all
know,
different. There's some shows that like
so
you just hit it, and some not as much.
yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So, you kind of already mentioned that show a little time bit earlier. One of your later writing projects was on Pinkalicious and Peterrific, where you also serve as head writer. Can you talk a bit working on that?
Yeah, that was a real challenge for me, because that was sort of like a whole, I wasn't familiar with the books. The books had millions and millions of followers, and I was working for the first time as Victoria Can as the author. So she really had creative control over, the whole thing, but she hadn't written for television. Um, it was quite challenging to kind of get her vision across. And we were on a really tight schedule. And I think the first season, I want to say we did maybe 80 shows. So it was insane. Um, and really challenging. But it was interesting to see it sort of, again, that was like when I was learning about all the stuff that you can and you can't do on animation. And like, I remember somebody had written something where a character in the one of the first scenes just drops a stack of papers, and it didn't, and we were with the animators in Ireland, and I remember the animators saying, the stack of papers took us like, days and days to animate a stack of papers falling and spreading. And I'm like, if you had just asked me, it didn't have to be a stack of papers. Somebody just wrote that in. They could have just like dropped a book or something. So it was like a learning process of water is so hard, and this is so hard, and that's so hard. They did a beautiful job animating it, but I did learn a lot from that show. Um, and it was sort of like going to a different, it wasn't really, I'm so used to comedy writing, and
Mm.
some of it's funny, but it was more sort of like fantastical, and going
Hmm.
to bringing my brain to a whole new a whole new place. But we did get to do a show with Yo-Yo Ma, which was great.
Oh, nice.
And we got to do, we had Carol Kane come in for, Carol Kane from like Princess Bride, and,
Yeah, yeah.
well, you know who she is. She
Yeah,
did
probably.
one of our gnome characters. And Marlo Thomas came in and did a character. So that was all really, really fun. Fun to do. Dorothea Gillum was the executive producer at GBH, and she's she's great. Everybody from GBH was great to work with.
Nice. So now, as we're kind of getting close to wrapping up, I do also want to ask about Don Quixote, because I know as we talked about in the beginning, that's kind of like your most recent, or one of your most recent children's writing projects. So what's it like writing on Don Quixote?
Don Quixote, I know I keep saying everything is so fun, but really it is. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and talk about David Rudman. Him and his brother,
Yeah.
created that show.
Yep, and
Yes.
It's
it's
just wonderful.
it's got a very Sesame feel to it because Adam and David are all about the comedy. So as much comedy as we can put in, and they're all about, again, writing from character. So I'm very attached to these characters and learning about them and what they would do and what they wouldn't do. And it's very sweet. I actually never really watched Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers, and I know that these were sort of lesser known characters that they made into puppets. They were lesser known characters from Mr. Rogers' show. So I went back and sort of learned about how they originated, and it's just, again, it's sort of like, because of the world that they live in, anything can happen, and that's very fun. Any silly, ridiculous thing you can think of. So I've been really enjoying that. I'm working on I guess this is their third season now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, great show. So since like Chris is about of course wrapping up, of course, if you're allowed to, can you share any projects you're currently working on?
I am developing some things with Adam and David, but
Ooh.
I can't really, we've developed a couple of shows that we've been trying to sell, but I can't really talk about them.
Oh, I'm definitely looking forward to them. It sounds like a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, looking forward to those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so. It's hard to, this market's hard. It's hard to get something on the air, but you never.
Yeah. So the last question that Matt here is going to ask is a question we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you very much, Chris. If you didn't catch it at the beginning, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of? Or in your own words, how do you define the word nostalgia?
Nostalgia, I guess I just define as something that makes you feel wonderful when you look back on it. And so I would say, like, for me personally, looking back on the early days of Sesame Street was just, it fills me with nostalgia because it was such a happy experience for me.
Nice. Great words to end on. Well, Belinda, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a blast.
Oh, thank you. It was great meeting you all. Thanks for having me on.
Yes.
Great meeting you
It was a
too.
pleasure.
You're
Great
very
meeting you as
welcome, and
well.
thank you so much for what you've done over the years with Wangfield, what you've done with Sesame, and all the sorts that you've done. Amazing what you've done, and keep up the great work what you're doing now. And cannot wait what's next in store for you, especially what you things that you just talk about, with more things that you're doing for David and Adam. So we're looking forward to those.
Great. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right.
Okay, Belinda.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. It's goodbye from us as well. We absolutely enjoyed our time speaking with Belinda Ward. Links to her social media will be in the description down below for people who want to connect with her. But keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
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 Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.